early 60s. And my future as a girl born into a Turkish Cypriot family was actually already laid out for me. So it was obvious, as soon as I was born, here we are, I do have an older brother, and then there was me. Here we are, here's a girl, this is what she's going to do, she's going to grow up, she's going to be an obedient daughter, she's going to then get married, have children, and carry on that way. We're going to give her away to another family, and that will be that. Which was a very different story than my brother. Because my brother was able to go out and play, he was able to expand himself, he was able to do whatever he wanted. In fact, he was encouraged to do what he wanted, whereas I was actively discouraged from doing anything. So I needed to, it was quite early in my life when I kind of decided that obviously that was not going to be the life for me. I was an obedient daughter, but I did start to think quite early on, why is everything so different for him, and why can't I go out and play? Why can't I have friends? Why can't I bring my friends home? Why can't I do, why can't I do these things? And even to the extent that at school, when I wanted to choose subjects, this is back in the 70s, when I wanted to choose subjects like woodwork, metalwork, engineering, I was told, no, you can't choose those subjects, those are for boys. Okay. So, the subjects I could choose, cookery, needlework, typing, childcare, and so I did those things because that's what I had to do, but I decided that what I needed to do was really, really stick to my education. For me, education was the way out. I looked at all the girls in my family, the women in my family and the girls, and not one of them had what looked like to me, they'd just all been basically crushed. They were these vibrant women who, when they were together, we would just laugh and, and tell rude jokes and all this, but as soon as the husbands came into the room, it was silent. And in fact, that was the life that we had, me and my 4 siblings, or 5 of us. Anyway, so I decided I had to do something. This was not going to be the life for me. And I kept saying to my parents, no, I'm going to stay on at school, I'm going to stay on at school, I want to be a surgeon, I'm going to stay on at school, I'm going to go to university, I'm going to do this. Actually, I couldn't be a surgeon because I'm squeamish. But, however, central heating is just like that. Anyway, so I was told by more than one member of my family, why are you even thinking about staying on at school? Because you're just going to give everything up when you get married. So why bother? And I was also told, don't bother staying on at school, you'll never find a husband, nobody wants a woman with a brain. That was what it was like when I was growing up. And no, it's different now, I'm happy to say, but that was what it was like for me. But I couldn't help it, I have got a brain, so I couldn't help it. So I excelled at school, I passed my exams, my A-levels, what have you, and I went to, well, as I was reaching my 18th birthday, when I was 16, it was time for me to start finding a husband. That was it. It was time for me to start being the dutiful, getting prepared for being the dutiful wife. So the invitations went out to all the families, any parties, bring your daughter, we've got a son, we know a boy, we know a family that's got an eligible son, let's meet, bring your daughter, and basically I was on show to all the family boys. A couple of them did approach, and I was like, no, I don't want to get married, I want to stay on school, but I realised that that was only going to be an avenue for me until I was 18. After 18, there was not going to be anything I could do about it. I was going to have to take action. So when I was 18, as that kind of age of 18 was coming up towards me, I thought I have to do something, so I leapt. There were suitors at the door, they were, you know, banging on the door, it's time for you to get married, it's time for you to get married. I left home, ran away, I disappeared. For all intents and purposes, I disappeared. Nobody knew where I was, my friends didn't know, I didn't tell my friends, I didn't tell any members of my family, and frankly, this was in London, I left London, and I went and lived for 3 weeks only, outside of London, at a friend's house who just said, yes, you can come and stay. My friends were great. I said, don't ask me any questions. I'm not going to tell you anything, but you know, this is what I'm going to do. One friend, I said to her, don't ask me anything, just come round to my house and borrow all my records. She said, I said, just do it, don't ask me anything. And she did. Bless her, I'm still friends with her today. Anyway, so I disappeared, and for a girl in my position, back in those days, to be disappeared like that, there were death threats from the family, there were search parties out looking for me. So I knew that this would happen, so I had to disappear, and that's what I did. However, I did have to come back because I had my degree to get, and my university in London. So I did come back, and I did manage to finish my degree, and I did manage to do my postgraduate degree, and then I managed to get a job as a teacher. I taught in some of the East End tourist schools for about 8 years, and I thought I was living the life I wanted. Because for me, my dream was not to be a plumber, my dream was to live the life I wanted to live. And I thought I was doing that as a teacher. But towards the 90s, the late 80s, I started to be disillusioned with teaching, because it was not the freedom I thought it was not what I thought it was going to be. So I started to look around me again and think, right, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to live a life I want to live? And the answer for me then was self-employment. Run your own business, rule your own destiny, work when you want to work, all the myths, you know, work when you want to work. And so I thought, well, what am I going to do? Now, I'd always been handy. So I looked back into my school days and I thought, well, I really wanted to do metalwork. I really wanted to do woodwork, design, technical drawing, engineering. And I kind of coupled that with my loves of that day, of even now, my deep, deep respect for water and everything about it. And I decided then it had to be plumbing. So I left my teaching job, literally, just left it. I moved from London up to Yorkshire and enrolled myself in college, in the Leeds College of Building, where I was the only girl in 1990. I was the only girl in the college, and I had to use the staff loos because they didn't have any loos there were no female students. And I passed all my exams. I did 1 day a week for 4 years, and I went to every single employer in Leeds. I must have written, and in them days there were no printers or mobile phones or anything like that. I'd handwritten about 50 CVs. I'd gone round, I'd phoned up. Companies used to, when I used to ring up and say, I'm looking for a job, they'd say, are you talking about your husband? And I'd say, no, I'm talking about me. And so I couldn't get a job. But I had to get something, I had to do something. So I thought, right, well, if nobody's going to give me a job, I'm just going to work for myself. So every time I learnt something, I went out and sold it. So when I learned to change a tap washer, I went out and changed tap washers, and that's how I lived. I bought my tools second-hand from the second-hand market. I bought a second-hand answering machine. I made up some flyers, and in them days, it was, like we said, printing was very expensive. So I had to hand print. There's a machine that goes like this, and it prints in purple. So you go like this and you produce a whole load of things. I knew how to use that machine because I'd used it as a teacher, so I made flyers. I trudged the streets and I gave out flyers, and I waited at home for the phone to ring. And sure enough, it did ring. I did call my company Stopcocks because, you know, it was spelled to me from heaven, Stopcocks. and the work started to come in. It was slow, obviously it was slow, and it was bloody scary. It was really scary because if the phone didn't ring for 2 days, I'd think, oh my God, how am I going to eat? But it was a leap of faith. Luckily for me, I was good with money, so I had a bit to, you know, put me on while I was waiting for the phone to ring. And I started to build my business, and that was in 1990. Let's fast forward to 2006. In 2006, I was on top of my game. I'd moved to 2 or 3 places. I was able to just move there, start work there, move there, build up my business. I had I could go on as many holidays as I wanted. I was earning, you know, as much money as I wanted. I could take work or not take it. It was fantastic. It was great. But in the news that year, I'd heard about flooding in Ethiopia, and the thousands of people had been killed. And then later on, in the same month, I heard about droughts, and thousands of people died. And it's like, well, thousands of people have died from drought, and thousands of people have not enough water, and thousands of people have died from too much water in the same month. How can this be allowed? You know, and I started looking into the way water is mismanaged in the world. And I started to see myself as more than just a plumber. I started to see myself as somebody who could expand what I was doing. And also I got myself a website, and I was moving along with the technology in the times. And as soon as I got a website, people started to contact me. Women started to contact me saying, I want to be a plumber, or I'm trying to get a job, or you know, all the things that I know that is still going on to this day. So, coupled with that, I went to an entrepreneurs convention. Needless to say, I was the only woman in the trades there. But that was a great thing, because we were given the opportunity, if we were exciting enough, to stand up and talk about our business for 2 minutes. There were 250 people there. There were at least 250 stickers on the wall that said what all the businesses were. Mine was picked. So I stood up. And since being a teacher, I'd never spoken to any people before. You know, I was a nursery teacher. I didn't want to teach anything that was taller than me. So I stood up and I said, I'm appalled that in this day and age, that, you know, people are dying in the same month of bad water management. And my vow is that I'm going to build an army of women plumbers, and we're going to make a difference to the world. And everyone went, yeah! And I went, oh, now I've done it. Now I've gone and done and said it. And now I have to do something about it. So between 2006 and 2010, I immersed myself in the industry. How am I going to do this now? How am I going to build an army of women plumbers? Where am I even going to find women plumbers? Where do women plumbers hang out? Well, the truth of the matter is that women plumbers have got nowhere to hang out. They had nowhere to hang out. Because each time I found a woman plumber, she was like, oh God, I didn't know any more of us existed.